Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a fascinating and really powerful network of organizations that are reshaping American policy. Think of it like an architecture of influence. It starts with a very public blueprint, but it's built on a foundation of strategy, faith, and, well, a good deal of secrecy. Let's get into it.
So, here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll kick things off with the plan you might have heard of, Project 2025. Then, we're going to peel back the layers to find the architects who wrote it, the secretive hub where they all strategize, and finally, the spiritual and professional networks that really bind this whole thing together.
All right, so let's start with the most visible piece of this entire structure, a massive, incredibly detailed policy guide known as Project 2025.
So what is Project 2025 exactly? Well, for starters, it's a nearly 900-page blueprint. It's led by the Heritage Foundation, and it's basically designed to be an action plan from day one of a new administration. And its scope? It's huge. Critics, like the Leadership Conference, say it's nothing short of a plan to completely reshape and fundamentally alter the federal government.
Right. A plan this comprehensive and detailed doesn't just materialize out of thin air. It really makes you stop and ask, okay, who actually built this? Who are the architects?
Well, behind every blueprint, you've got the architects. In this case, these are organizations that are laser-focused on two key things. One, drafting the specific policies, and two, cultivating the legal talent you need to implement and defend those policies in court. The source materials really point to three main pillars here. First, you've got the Heritage Foundation, which is drafting the policy itself. Second, there's the Federalist Society, which is all about building this deep network of lawyers and judges who interpret the law through a lens of originalism. You know, the idea of sticking to what the Constitution's framers originally intended. And third, you have groups like Alliance Defending Freedom and First Liberty who are on the front lines, fighting in court to set new legal precedents, which, it's important to note, their opponents say are rolling back established civil rights.
Okay, so we've looked at the more public-facing architects, but now we're going to go a layer deeper to the network's strategic core, and this is an organization that operates almost entirely behind closed doors.
We are talking about the Council for National Policy, or CNP, and just listen to how the New York Times describes it. A little-known club of a few hundred of the most powerful conservatives in the country who meet 3 times yearly behind closed doors.
Now, for an organization that's so intensely secretive, it's pretty wild what we've learned from leaked membership lists. They give us a peek inside, and they reveal this roster of just major figures from politics, media, and activism. It really shows you just how far the council's reach extends.
And its mission, from the very beginning, has been crystal clear. It was founded way back in 1981 to act as a central hub, a place to connect wealthy donors with the political operatives on the ground to coordinate long-term strategy and, in their own words, to bring more force to their cause.
But this whole architecture isn't just about policy and strategy. It's also deeply rooted in institutions that focus on spiritual and professional development. The goal here is to integrate faith directly into public and professional life.
A really key example of this is the Catholic Information Center in Washington, D.C. I mean, it's strategically located just a stone's throw from the White House, and it's run by a priest of Opus DEI. With over 30,000 people attending its events every year, its stated purpose is to help professionals, especially those in government, live integrated lives of faith, essentially bridging their spiritual beliefs with their public work.
Now, another group identified in the sources is People of Praise. It's described as an ecumenical, charismatic covenant community, and it has received some really strong endorsements from Catholic leaders. At the same time, though, it's faced significant public criticism, with some media reports going so far as to call it a cult, and some former members have come forward alleging a controlling culture.
And this brings us to the most crucial point of all. These groups are not operating in silos. They're not separate pillars. They form a deeply interconnected network, and they're often woven together by the very same people moving between them.
A perfect, and I mean perfect, example of this interconnection is Leonard Leo, who's a central figure in the conservative legal movement.
So just look at this. The sources show Leo is not just a major force at the Federalist Society. He is also a member of that secretive Council for National Policy, and he serves on the board of the Catholic Information Center. He personally connects the legal, the strategic, and the spiritual pillars of this entire network.
Let's look at another example of how these threads weave together. Let's look at the activist Ginny Thomas.
So Thomas is also a member of the Council for National Policy, which puts her right in that central strategic hub.
And according to reports, she has close ties with First Liberty, and if you remember, that's one of the key legal organizations we identified earlier as an architect of Project 2025.
So, when you connect all these dots, the people, the organizations, the strategy, you see what the source material describes as a unified objective. It's a coordinated effort aimed at what they themselves have called the deconstruction of the secular administrative state to be replaced with an order based on their principles.
Understanding this highly synchronized architecture leaves us with a really critical question. When policy, law, money, and faith are this interconnected, this coordinated, what does that actually mean for the future of American governance? What happens when the blueprint becomes the building?